The Nonary Games trilogy is dear to my heart. I love playing games on the go, so I own a 3DS, a PSP and a Vita. I really want a Switch as well, but those are quite expensive, so I'll have to wait for its time to pass and hope that the prices can drop significantly then. The reason why I mention all of this is because my first contact with the Nonary Games was while playing on my 3DS using a DS emulator. The first one, called 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, or in short simply 999, came out for the Nintendo DS and was one of the few adult-rated games on the system. It offers a deep and very intricate story combined with a series of escape room puzzles. I didn't think much of it at first, but was quickly enthralled by its story. Later came the sequel called Virtue's Last Reward and the last game of the series, also known as Zero Time Dilemma. I love all three of them and actually replayed them recently on the PC. I was only planning on doing the first one since that one was not voice acted when I played it on the Nintendo DS, or rather on the Nintendo DS version, and the recent remastered release actually features all new voice acting, which I was curious to hear, but they did such a good job with that, and since I had forgotten most of the story anyway, I ended up replaying all three games. In this review, I will talk about all of them. First up is 999, the game that started it all. First and foremost, none of these games run in ultra-wide. This is understandable though, since the technology used here really doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility with resolutions and scaling. I didn't expect ultra-wide here, and you shouldn't either. When trying to start 999, I found out that many of the sounds were not working properly. I read that this is fixed by installing OpenAL, which can be found in the game's installation directory. That fixes the issue for me, and everything works fine afterwards. I'm only mentioning it in case someone has this problem and is watching this video. The nice thing here is that we're given the option of changing the voiceover language on the fly. You can go with original Japanese or English. While I do love the Japanese language, the voice actors from the English one are so much better. In any case, being able to hear them talk makes such a difference from just reading their thoughts. The voice acting is stellar. Clearly this was done with a lot of attention to details and not just by the way to get it done. Kudos to them for that. Since 999 was originally not scripted with voice acting in mind, there's a lot of gasping written in the script. Normally you would expect the voice acting to just ignore most of it, but no. Here every gasp is voiced, making for some funny sounding gasping at times. Still, it adds to the game's charm and stands as a testament to the dedication of these actors. I respect that. When it comes to the game's look, it's all 2D and still looks pretty good. You have to consider that this game is from the Nintendo DS era. While most of the text is voice acted, you will still have text that describes things. That one is obviously left to the player to read. The original 999 had a lot of it. The game was originally half visual novel and half puzzle game. And while this is still the case, thanks to the voice acting, people don't have to read nearly as much, making it a lot more mainstream. Still, the game offers two different playing modes. You have novel mode, which is the original one and comes with a lot more descriptions. It also features a purple tint in the corners of the screen for some reason. They seem unnecessary to me because the game usually tells you in which mode you already are. Then there's the second option, adventure mode. This one is modernized and most of the non-essential text is straight out cut out. I played it in this mode now and didn't really feel like I was missing much. The game will rotate between a visual novel part and then an escape room part. In the visual novel section, you are effectively watching cutscenes and get to make decisions from time to time. These decisions might not seem like much at first, but will ultimately affect the flow of the story in extreme ways. All three games have many endings, and it is part of the experience to make wrong choices and learn more because of them before making the right ones. Without spoiling the story, I will tell you this much: our protagonist finds himself stuck in a sinking ship with a bunch of other people. They have these bracelets and are told by a masked person who appears on the screen that they have 9 hours to find a way out of the ship or can sink with it. The bracelets are simultaneously keys which need to be combined with those of the other prisoners, but also enforcers of the rules. If someone tries to do something against the game's rules established by the masked host, a small explosive device within the bracelet will trigger and blow up its wearer. But as the plot thickens, you will find out that there's a lot more to the story than it seems at first. All of the participants are connected and a lot more is at stake. But I won't divulge more because the story is really excellent. As for the puzzle sections, those become more and more difficult, and I found myself checking walkthroughs from time to time. Perhaps I'm just impatient or not smart enough, whichever it may be. Helping myself didn't lessen my enjoyment of the game. The game was the beginning of a saga, and while the story seems concluded with it, the second game, Virtue's Last Reward, delves much deeper since it takes place in the future. In order to understand a bit more of the story that is woven between all three games, I have to share a very important fact about it. The story features time travel, and I love those. This is also why it is so awesome to me. You will do and witness things which will make little to no sense initially, but later later on there will be a huge reveal and suddenly it all makes sense. The best part is that the story goes on, the characters will gradually begin to realize that they are knowing things for which there's no explanation. They shouldn't be able to tell these things, but they do. It is because they themselves realize that time travel has been happening in some way. It gets better and better, and I don't want to say too much. The player's decisions will factor in more and more as the story progresses. Virtue's Last Reward follows that plot, but comes with a significant upgrade in more than one places. First of all, we have 3D graphics. Some people actually prefer the 2D ones, but I enjoy the 3D graphics significantly more. The characters are also animated, and while the animations repeat, they are still a huge step forward when it comes to conveying the characters' emotions and general disposition. The voice acting remains excellent. We have the same option between Japanese and English and can switch them as we like. Even the storytelling is better here. You feel as though the writing is more mature at times, more brutal as well. The story, while connected to the other two games, yes, even to the one of the third game, which hadn't been released back then, is better than the one from the first game. As a matter of fact, this second game is probably the best in the trilogy. But that does not diminish the qualities of the other two. We now have a timeline which shows us all the ways the story is playing out with junctions at all the places where we've made a decision. This is where the story changes over and over again. This addition is very good because now we can simply jump around to various places and try different things out. While in the first game we had to effectively replay the whole game every time. This was not as bad as it sounds though, because we could skip all the visual parts which we had already seen before. So getting to the sections that matter and where a decision needs to be made again did not take long at all and was not difficult. Still, the timeline makes this even faster and more convenient and is a huge step forward. The puzzle sections are also in 3D, which is an important improvement in my eyes. You can now activate something called easy mode, which will cause other characters around you to give you more and more hints as to what needs to happen next. This helped immensely. The only drawback is that you have to replay all the puzzles where you had to ask for hints again at the end if you want to see the hidden ending, but by then you would have solved them once, so doing it a second time without help is not that hard, or you could just check it out on YouTube. That ending is not necessary, although it explains a lot. I didn't like it. Then comes the third game, Zero Time Dilemma. Chronologically, it fits between the first and the second game in terms of story. It is the most gruesome one of the three, with a lot of ways to end up killing the characters, but it does not feel like an attempt at being edgy. The brutal executions feel fitting and are explained by the plot. As with the previous games, the voice acting is stellar. You will also notice a slight improvement in the animations of the characters, but it isn't massive. Still, better than nothing, I'd say. While many of the characters in each game are unique, you will also always have recurring ones. The first two games always placed you in the shoes of a protagonist, but now you get to play as several characters. This works well because it blocks you from being able to guess what the biggest reveal is going to be at the end. Not that I was able to correctly guess any of them in the previous games, but with this one you can't even tell who to root for. It's done very well and features a lot of cameos to the previous games. You get to make decisions again, and this time they seem more important than ever. You even have Easter eggs hidden, which are a lot of fun, but will be missed by most players unless they Google them. I would encourage you not to do it before you have beaten the game, because some of them will only confuse you when you haven't yet been shown the bigger picture once. All three games are very long. Even if you were using walkthroughs, it will take you a very long time to beat them. It took me 3 weeks. The main reason for that is that I would play them for a few hours and then take a break. It's just the kind of game that is best enjoyed in short increments because the puzzles can be demanding, especially later on. The trilogy is available on Steam for around $30. If you decide to give the game a try, go for the whole bundle. Trust me, any of these will hook you and you will want to play the other two games as well. And while you could play them in any given order and still understand the plot, I advise you to do so in the order in which they came out and are presented in this review. This way, all of the big revelations will hit you hard, making the story that much more enjoyable. These games aren't for everyone though. If you can't sit and essentially watch a cutscene which lasts 10 to 15 minutes where you may or may not have to make a decision somewhere, then this is definitely not the kind of game for you. It is, at the end of the day, a visual novel and a puzzle game hybrid. There really isn't any middle ground here. Whoever I have talked to either loves them or found them super boring and never finished a single one. So you have to decide for yourself if this appeals to you. If you're looking for a great time travel story, then look no further. And now for the obligatory part where I remind you that I post links to free games on my Patreon page, and you should thus check it out from time to time. YouTube does not allow me to make posts yet, written ones, to all my subscribers, since my channel is so small, so Patreon is a good alternative. The link's in the description. Don't miss those freebies. In any case, thanks for watching. watching and have a great day.